picture of Doug.
There are probably thousands of people looking at that screen right now.
Right, thousands.
If I wasn't here, I'd
All rise. All rise for the pledge.
Still on standby.
Still on standby. That's what we're
The
doing.
light's on.
We're standing by.
The light is on.
Are we on, Mike?
There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before sitting, I just want to have a moment of silence for two longtime Tarrytowners who passed away over the past month. Jim Maloney, who was a personal friend, great guy who died on June 23rd. He had over 35 years as a member of the zoning board and over 40 years as an active member of our fire department. And also Florence Gilroy, who worked in the village water department for 25 years. She died over this weekend. So we have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay. Start out with any miscellaneous or liaison reports. Anybody on this end? Nope.
Yes, there's a concert again, this coming Thursday, July 18th, for a group called Powderfinger. Now, I'm not sure what kind of music they play, but they're coming. 7 to 9.
Sounds loud.
Now, that doesn't make you want to come down in here. I don't know what else does. 7 o'clock startup time down at Pearson Park. Thanks.
There's also Friday night.
And Friday night
at
jazz, yes,
Pearson Park
yes.
as well.
But I don't think Powderfinger's there.
No, I don't think so.
Sorry.
Tom, yours?
I have nothing. No, nothing.
Yeah. Richard? Oh, we do, wait, I didn't, we do have 2 new resolutions to add to the agenda. Right.
One would be authorizing the acceptance of a donation of concrete docks. The second would be authorizing the appointment of new employee to the position of lead maintenance mechanic automotive. And then I also shared with the mayor, we could discuss that in executive session, personnel changes and other things that have happened over the past 2 years. So update on that.
Anything else, Rich?
Other reports, there will be, let's see if I can pull it up really quick. We're going to have the parking lots striped, Carol, but not, the numbers will be painted.
Just the numbers.
So the spot numbers will be painted. We have a whole schedule posted, and we're asking everybody on the nights of
I believe it's
July 29th and July 30th.
right.
There will be no overnight parking
Midnight to
between
5 a.m.
midnight and 5 a.m. So they're going to go out and paint those spot numbers at the time of night when it's least impactful on anybody out there.
And we're able to notify permit holders by
We're gonna
email,
send out
right?
all emails to permit holders.
We posted on Facebook. We're going to send out an email blast. We'll post it on the website
Where's it taking place?
at all the commuter lots.
Except for E. E doesn't have numbers.
Correct. So, yeah, the low C lot down by
Plus
Sunset Cove
West Main Street
doesn't have
and
numbers.
Green Street.
So what do they do? They're posts.
Stenciling the numbers.
No, but the numbers are on posts in the lot. They're not on the,
No, they're on the
They're
pavement.
on no, the numbers in lot E are on posts. They're not on asphalt.
No, there's no numbers.
No, no, but
Because
that's the
it's
resident
no-
lot. That's the resident recreation lot.
It's a
So it's
free
no
lot.
pay.
It's only for residents.
Oh, sorry, I'm confusing it with the low C lot. Never mind. Okay.
It's hard to keep those letters straight. It is.
Names are better.
E's the only one I remember.
That's right. Okay, that's all I have.
Right. It's the one that's different, so you can remember. Okay, our first item is a public hearing on Chapter 225, peddling and soliciting. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Rich or Kathy, would you like to just give a brief summary of what we did here?
We were contacted by a law firm on behalf of a company that was informed of the various regulations that apply here in the village of Tarrytown for peddlers and vendors. They had some objections and other things like that. We did look into some of the concerns that were raised about past court cases that applied on the constitutionality of certain things, and we have made and proposed changes which are before the board tonight that would make our laws more acceptable within standards that have been established by the courts. So in terms of time of processing an application, how an application is looked into, the time when people may solicit, or it also formalizes our do not solicit list, which we had as a registry in the past, but was never actually codified. And Kathy, anything else?
The board also at the work session wanted to adjust the fees, which,
I don't think we have that resolution on for tonight,
okay,
Carol. So we'd have to, we'll do the fees at the next one.
separately.
Right, it's a new do not knock registry shall be established and maintained by the village clerk office. Okay, is there anybody who wishes to speak on the, we had it, but it wasn't in the code, so we're adding it to the code.
Should I let them speak first? Good evening, Kyle, 20 Browning Lane. Speaking about the changes to the law, I looked at the agenda and I saw a couple of the changes that were suggested. One being the 9 o'clock hard across the board recommendation for solicitors. Now, I don't have infants anymore, but having had infants, having been on the do not call registry, I got the nice little tag from Carol when I first found out about it, and I put it in my window just so that, to make sure that I would be left alone. Invariably, after 8 o'clock during the wintertime, there's a doorbell going off. The dogs were barking, waking up the kids. I'm trying to speak on behalf of those other parents that do have infants in their houses when they're trying to get them to sleep. I'd like you to maybe make it so that we can have a hard 7 o'clock. I mean, it's 2 hours earlier. Maybe it's something that we can look into. I don't know what the other laws have said. I know we have to go by standards and what the other laws that have been brought forth.
I would defer to counsel on this.
I mean, unfortunately, the cases have struck down as unconstitutional regulations that restricted prior to 9 o'clock p.m. And also, there was a recommendation from NICOM that if the village wanted to do a restriction, that it not be prior to 9 p.m.
Okay.
So I know it does sound late, but that's what the law that we're unfortunately
Okay.
dealing with.
In response to that, what penalties can we put into place for those people who violate the no-knock prohibition? Because as a homeowner here who pays taxes, et cetera, makes Tarrytown his home for the past 45 years, what protections do I have as a citizen of Tarrytown? Here's somebody coming from the outside, and you're saying that they have rights, which everybody has rights. What rights do I have to ensure that my rights are not being violated, and what do I have to fall back on if somebody does knock on my door?
I mean, there is penalty provisions in the code currently, so you should be calling the police and they'll enforce the code, like they do all the code.
My thing is, having been in emergency services, working very closely with the police department, calling them for somebody who's knocking on my door seems, to me, not an emergency, right? So to have somebody race code 3 to my house to take a report because somebody chose to knock on my door because they ignored the do not call list is, seems a little bit excessive.
Is there any alternative? I mean, my guess is that there's sort of no real alternative for enforcement, but
Do they have a number on their peddler's license?
I mean, you
Can that be
you're
taken?
supposed to carry, if they go
Can
through
that
the
be
process, they will have a
Yeah, that's part of
license.
the penalties.
That's,
I
Yeah.
mean, what do I, can I say I want to see your license and then take their license from them, or how does
No,
that
you-
work?
No,
I
you
mean,
don't do that.
you can't
know,
take the license, but they should be, they're required to carry the license and show it to you.
And then
I
report.
mean,
Can you ask to see it and then copy the number down and then report it that way? Is that
Take a
even?
picture of it.
I mean, if I take a
Yeah.
picture of it, like, there have been times where people have knocked on my door that it's clearly listed, you know, right there on the window. Leave me alone, right? I'm not a friendly person, go away. They usually get that from the first interaction with me, but sometimes they persist. I don't want your magazines, right? The thing for me is, I will snap a picture and be very obvious about it, and then they run away. But I don't want to have to annoy somebody else about that. You know, I've already been annoyed enough with them coming on my door. Now they're making me do work. Right, so if there's a way that we could curtail this through any legal means necessary, we have many fees in the village. Let's make these fees really expensive.
I
You
think
wanna
there's
come in
also,
here?
I think there's limitations. You can't make it, you can't make it prohibitive, which is part of the problem, I think, is
That's
the fees
exactly
the fees are actually
Very
seen
high.
as being too high if you had.
Our fees are too high for
in
the
part, yeah.
solicitors?
In one manner, in that it applied to every single person who might be soliciting for a company, right? If I recall the
Mhm.
Right.
conversation. So you can't backdoor, you know, and you have an active group of, people who are challenging these laws. That's why this came about. So it's not like you can sort of do it anymore, because it's out in the open, it's clear. There's been cases, and there's people who will act on it and bring court actions and sue. So you have to be direct, and you have to be in accordance with the court precedents, and one of those is that you can't have excessive fees, and obviously that 9 o'clock one, which is what I figured, although we hadn't discussed it particularly.
So can we as a village be equally litigious against these companies that do violate our no-knock policy?
Well, the law allows us to take away a license. If there's, I'm trying to find the language that was in here.
I didn't find it.
There was about complaints, and now I'm not finding it. I know I saw it.
Yeah. Not finding it either.
Yeah, I know I saw it, but it's hard to do.
It's
it.
22521.
There's an appeal process for them being denied.
Right.
2521.
Yeah, penalties for offenses.
Yeah.
And then that, I think, allows for fines and even imprisonment. So I think the remedy is to call the police.
So I'll have to call the police department. Okay, I was trying to avoid doing that.
Right.
I
feel like
because they have better things to do than come take.
Somewhere in here, there is, in terms of them applying for license,
Well,
it
they-
mentioned if there are complaints against them by us or by other municipalities.
Yeah, it can be revoked too.
Can be,
Yes.
right, may be
Yes.
invoked, right.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you don't want to call the police, certainly register a complaint with, I guess, with the village clerk's office.
Okay.
And provide any information to her.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it says that any violation of the code is guilty of a violation upon conviction thereof shall be punishable for each offense of a fine of not more than $250 or by imprisonment for not more than 15 days or both.
Is that in this? Are you reading it off?
That's
The
the,
version is, that's currently in the code.
that's currently in the code. It's 22521, tells you to look at
Which
the
isn't, by the way,
general.
which isn't here.
It doesn't say that in mine, but okay.
Yeah, it's a section we don't have.
It's not,
It wasn't changed.
it's a section that's not being changed.
Right.
And I guess the last thing is, do I have to sign up for the
No
no-knock?
registration?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I have the list.
Oh, you have a list?
Well,
Every
what we
time-
could do, Carol, is send out a notification to all the people who are already registered,
Well, they
that will maintain their name on registration, you know, and
We
ask
could
them
do
to
that. Yep.
confirm.
I
So
do
we'll,
that. But any time a permit or license is approved and if they get a copy of.
the do not knock
They
registration.
get a copy of it and they're told not to. And if any other placards say no soliciting, they're supposed to abide by that as well.
Yeah,
Not that they do.
Right.
they're told.
How often do you actually have people knock on your door do you have a posted sign out front that says no service?
I have the posted sign out front, and one day, one guy came up to, as I was working in the garage, was like, "Oh, hey, no, get off the
Yeah, go
property,
away.
leave, go away." Well, you see the sign?
How recently was it?
About 2 weeks ago.
Oh, this recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was a group of, there was some group that was soliciting in Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown. They definitely were, they were doing, some kind of construction-related work. They were advertising themselves for it.
One guy was a solar company, the other was the cable company. You hear all the time Con Ed saying, "Oh, our people are clearly identified." If this is the fact with Con Ed, then these people should also be clearly identified as somebody who's soliciting with an ID on them. So that, because how many times do we hear in the news, there was a crime committed through distraction? That somebody came to the door, distracted an elderly individual, and they skirted around, they robbed the house.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're required to have the ID,
Photo.
the photo ID, showing it, so.
Is this something that, as a village, we can issue?
Well, the police
people
do an
or-
ID verification.
So with the ID verification, is that a full-on background check, or is that,
I
what
don't
is
think
that?
it's a full-on
It's not
background
a criminal
check.
background check. They have to check, available resources without doing that criminal, like running the fingerprints kind of thing.
Okay, so why aren't we requiring a criminal background check for people who are walking around our neighborhoods soliciting?
It's against the law.
Is it against the law?
I mean, you know better than me.
Yeah, I believe it's too restrictive, and this shows, this is a pretty detailed, according to police chief.
We're reviewing
Background check.
public
They're-
records
right.
and
Right.
background checks.
Okay. But if there's anything we as a village can do to minimize the disruption of those families in the village, that would be greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for letting us know.
Thanks, Todd.
By the way, anybody want to buy a magazine?
Good seeing you, take care.
All right, there's no one else here. So I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor. Second.
All in favor? All right. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby amend the Code of the Village of Tarrytown, Chapter 225, peddling, soliciting, to address permitted hours, fees, and other language in the code, whereas a public hearing was held for the proposed action on July 15th, 2019, and whereas a notice of public hearing was published in the Journal News on June 21, 2019, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is the only agency which has approval authority over the proposed action and is therefore the lead agency for the proposed action, now therefore be it resolved as follows. In accordance with Article 8 of the State Environmental Conservation Law and 6 NYCRR Part 617, including without limitations the criteria set forth in 6 NYCRR Part 617.7C, and based upon review of the proposed action, the Village Board of Trustees hereby determines that the proposed action will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment and hereby adopts a negative declaration, and now therefore be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby adopt local law number 5 of 2019.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, public hearing on a draft proposed local law to amend the village code and establish the position of secretary to the planning board, zoning board of appeals, and architectural review board as required by Westchester County Civil Service. Just briefly, this is required by Westchester County Civil Service. It doesn't mean we are hiring anybody new.
It's actually a
It's just-
position we've had here for
Right.
several years, and the employee's been employed by the village for several years.
Right.
They're just looking for us to formalize everything within the
Right.
code.
No other change. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's nobody present. Take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor. Second.
All in favor? Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby amend the Code of the Village of Tarrytown, Chapter 9 on the Architecture Review Board, Chapter 52 on residency requirements, and Chapter 305 on Planning Board and Board of Appeals, and Zoning Board of Appeals? Yeah, Zoning Board of Appeals, I should say. To establish the position of Secretary to the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Architecture Review Board. And whereas a public hearing was held for the proposed action on July 15th, 2019, and whereas a notice of public hearing was published in the Journal News on June 21, 2019, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is the only agency which has approval authority over the proposed action and is therefore the lead agency for the proposed action, be it further resolved that since this is a ministerial action under the provisions of SECRA, it is therefore exempt under the provisions of Title VI NYCRR Part 617, and no environmental review is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby adopt local law number 6 of 2019.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there's no members of the public present, so we'll continue on. Appointment of a building department engineering intern. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint Mariana Reese as building department intern at an hourly rate of $25 per hour, with hours not to exceed 17.5 per week, effective retroactive to June 28th, 2019, for a time frame that will not exceed 3 months.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, fire department membership changes. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve the following fire department membership changes recommended at the June 18th, 2019 Board of Fire Wardens meeting. Members, Nolan Samford has been elected to active membership at Hope Hose, and Isaias Perdomo has been elected to active membership at Washington Engine. Luke Spencer has been elected to active membership at Conquer Hook and Ladder, and Christopher Gaspari has been approved as a member of Marine 5. Drivers, Justin Hoyt has been approved as a driver of Marine 5, and Scott Weaver Sr. has been approved as a driver at Riverside Hose.
Is Marine 5 the new one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I should say, I'm going to vote no on the driver to vote no. I'm going to recuse myself to Justin Hoyt as a driver of Marine 5.
But otherwise, you're a...
Otherwise, I'm for everything
Right.
else now. If I
Okay.
can only just get him to clean his room, I'll be
Yeah, right. I'll do another appointment. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint Reginald Waters as lead maintenance mechanic automotive to be the mechanic foreman in the Department of Public Works garage, and an annual salary starting at $83,381 based on the provisions of the contract between the village and the CSEA, and based on the provisions of civil service for a probationary period of not less than 12 weeks and not more than 52 weeks.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Okay, I might as well go to the, yeah, I might as well go to the second one, on the docks. Authorization, acceptance of a donation of concrete docks. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown hereby authorizes the acceptance of a donation of concrete docks with an estimated value of approximately $4,000 that were originally given to Teddy Tenenzoff by Sound Marine Construction and Salvage of Nyack, New York, to be transferred to the Tarrytown Fire Department.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, a lease agreement with the U.S. Postal Service for parking permits. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute a renewal agreement with the U.S. Postal Service for parking permits known as a ground lease in the amount of $9,750 annually for up to 38 parking permits, which shall be effective retroactively to June 1, 2019, with an expiration date of May 31, 2024, for a total of 5 years.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
An intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County for tracks. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to enter into a renewal of the agreement between Westchester County Department of Public Safety, the New York State Police, and the Village of Tarrytown for the use of the track software at no cost to the village for a term of 5 years.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Track stands for, Richard, do you know?
Tracy?
I believe it's some kind of computer system.
Yeah, it's a software.
Software.
It's a software program to allow the police department to have access to traffic and vehicular accident.
Yeah, it must have something about traffic or transportation.
That's what I expected.
Right. Okay, the Westchester County Prisoner Transportation Agreement. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute an intermunicipal agreement, IMA, between the village and Westchester County regarding reimbursement to the Village of Tarrytown Police Department for prisoner transportation to county jail facilities for the period January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2020.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second? All in favor? Next, we have a revised community development block grant agreement, CDBG. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is hereby authorized and direct the village administrator to prepare and submit 2 community development block grants, CDBG, for a matching fund grant in the amount of 2 $500,000 grants, which are on a 50-50 basis for sidewalk replacements and ancillary improvements outlined below, which will be made by adhering to standard construction practices, including proper survey, design, bidding, and supervision. The project will promote a suitable living environment for low to moderate income individuals and families in or near the downtown area. The village will apply for a $250,000 grant to be matched by $250,000 for year 1 as phase 1, and the village will apply for a $250,000 grant to be matched by $250,000 for year 2 as phase 2. The sites: West Franklin Street, approximately 2,100 square feet of the north sidewalk, 6 feet wide, from South Washington Street to Broadway, will be replaced, including concrete curb, 350 linear feet, driveway, drop curbs, 640 square feet, and replacement of a retaining wall. South Washington Street, approximately 4,050 square feet of the north sidewalk, 6 feet wide, from the municipal parking lot on South Washington Street to West Franklin Street will be replaced, including concrete curb, 675 linear feet, driveways, drop curbs, 960 square feet, and 1 tree removal. Wildy Street, approximately 4,125 square feet of the sidewalks, 5 feet wide, will be replaced, including concrete curb, 825 linear feet, and 10 tree replacements. McKeel Avenue, approximately 1,800 square feet of the north sidewalk, 6 feet wide, east of North Broadway, will be replaced, including concrete curb, 270 linear feet, and driveways, drop curbs, 400 square feet, and 1,050 square feet of the south sidewalk, 6 feet wide, will be replaced, including curb, 175 linear feet, and driveway, drop curbs, 320 square feet. And White Street, approximately 1,200 square feet of the sidewalk, 6 feet wide, from Main Street to West Franklin Street will be replaced, including concrete curb, 200 linear feet on a steep slope. The outcome of this project is to make the infrastructure used by pedestrians and school children, such as sidewalks, safe and accessible. Furthermore, the project promotes livable and viable communities by removing sidewalks that are eyesores or demonstrate neglect. Of the 4,585 people that live in the project area, 2,445 people, or 53.3%, are low and moderate income and will have improved access to an infrastructure benefit, new sidewalks and curbs that replace the current substandard sidewalks and curbs. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown authorizes the village administrator to take the necessary and appropriate actions to complete, sign, and file this grant application on behalf of the Village of Tarrytown.
Quick question. This is like the second time we've gone after this fund,
Correct.
right?
So if the board remembers, in June, we got an authorization to file the application.
You did.
After that, Dan and I went and looked in the field. The sidewalks on Main Street and Broadway would not pass the county's review process. So we're trying to stay within the low to moderate income zone as identified around the downtown, focus on areas that need capital improvements. We will proceed through the building department and our own forces to do repairs in the other areas that have been identified as having problems. But in the meantime, we're looking to have this project done in the downtown to benefit the people in the low to moderate income areas.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Could we have tried to build a sidewalk on the west side of Riverview Avenue with this money?
Probably not, because it's not in the low to moderate income zone.
Certainly is. Riverview Avenue?
It's, well, I don't have the map in front of me, Doug. If I went and got it, I could
Right
tell you.
above Franklin Courts.
Doug, I would have to go get the map and take a look at it and tell you whether it's included
I
in that.
believe it is. So could we have built a sidewalk that the residents came and requested? Could we have tried to use the money for that project?
You mean on the west side of the street?
Yes, where there's a dirt
Where the
path.
goat path
Where the goat path is, the dirt path that people walk onto the train, school kids use it.
It would take some additional research, honestly, because we don't know whether the municipal housing authority is in favor of having a sidewalk over there. I'm not against it, Doug. I think it needs additional research.
The McKeel, that McKeel stretch is in the low to moderate income housing zone?
Yes, it is. Up to the old Croton Aqueduct, and that's it.
There is no people living there.
I think we should have tried to, we should have looked at building a sidewalk on Riverview with the money. I think it would have been money better spent.
Is it possible to look at phase 2? Is there any time that would enable that to be done?
Well, this is all laid out as phase 1 and 2. I mean, there will be a future phase that will be available probably in 2021.
So it's a single application, or
It's
essentially
two applications, one for 2020 and one for
deadline by
The application's passed, they're asking us to submit a new resolution to justify what we had already submitted.
Because that is a spot that could certainly use.
So if the board doesn't authorize this, we'll have to.
The timing of this is,
Now,
right, there's a deadline.
yes,
What's the deadline?
the deadline was June 26th, or something like that.
June 26th.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we had the original application filed with the resolution that the board authorized. We asked them if we could submit it with a revised resolution.
And when will
revised-
when will the next one be available?
Probably a couple of years.
Probably.
Couple
after
years.
2 years. Well,
Yes.
because you got this
Yes,
year.
yeah.
This is for, this would, if
This
we
is
were
for a
to get
two-year
this
cycle
grant.
for 2021 and 2020, 2020 and 2021.
So
So the next cycle
2022.
would open for applications in 2021 for the following years of
Well,
2022.
we should definitely, and we should make it a fairly high priority to
Mhm.
look at that. And maybe there's other grant monies
Yeah.
available, since it is transportation related.
Street smart.
So maybe there's some, yeah, there might be.
When is that?
Very good point.
Smart
It
Street?
Clearly is people going to the train station, so maybe there's a shot at getting some.
Intermodal monies and things
Yes.
like that.
Well, yeah, or whatever else is out there.
We'll have a bake sale.
I know that is whether it fits this criteria or not, but it might fit some other criteria.
Sure.
Okay.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, municipal resolution authorizing participation in the New York State Climate Smart Communities Grant Project and provision of local match. Whereas the Village of Tarrytown hereby pledges to participate in the Climate Action Planning Institute Westchester County project that will be submitted as a grant proposal to the New York State Climate Smart Communities Grant Program by Westchester County as lead applicant. Whereas the Village of Tarrytown hereby pledges to participate in this Climate Action Planning Leadership Program in partnership with the Hudson Valley Regional Council and ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability.
It's 13?
Yes.
Are we skipping 13?
Oh, I'm sorry, no,
Yeah.
that was a
No,
mistake.
sorry.
Well, actually,
Jonathan.
Let me finish this up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Good catch.
It's coming out of your pay.
Yeah, right.
He's excited about
That's where the
Ickley.
minuses. Whereas the Village of Tarrytown certifies that it has identified and secured a minimum of $11,007 in matching funds from donated professional services from the village staff and volunteer time from the village's Conservation Advisory Council, TIAC, as a contribution to the Climate Action Planning Institute Westchester County project, pursuant to the requirements of Environmental Conservation Law, Article 54, Title 15. The balance of the match needed to meet the NISDEC CSC grant requirement of 50% for this project will be contributed by Westchester County and other participating Westchester County municipalities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Tarrytown hereby authorizes Richard Slingerland, Village Administrator, an official of the village, to act on its behalf for submittal of a letter of commitment for matching fund provision and participation in Westchester County's Climate Action Planning Institute, Westchester County, application to the consolidated funding application.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And back to 13. Authorization to submit a grant application through the 2019 Consolidated Funding Application, CFA. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize the submission of a grant application through the 2019 Consolidated Funding Application, CFA, as follows. Funding for capital improvements for a new sewer line that would service the Eastview Pump Station building and would also create an opportunity to install public bathrooms there, which would be the only public bathrooms along the North County Trailway in Westchester between the Bronx and Putnam County for an approximate 36-mile length of public pedestrian and biking trailway. Be it further resolved, the village administrator is authorized to take the appropriate actions to prepare, execute, and submit the documents necessary to complete and file the CFA application.
I'd like to let the board know, I've done some research into this application. From what I could see under the Parks Department, the maximum money available for that program is $250,000 per application. So there's a 20% match, which I believe would mean another 50 by the village. So the maximum contribution towards the project would be $300,000. We have a very,
That's parks as in state parks.
through the
Not
state
county
parks,
parks.
CFA program. So
Although I think we did talk about it, and I think we should approach the county, since it's a county
Yes,
trailway that's gonna be
to see if
primarily
there's other
servicing, and
monies
they
that they
should
could
certainly
help out
contribute
with.
at least half of that.
You know, I also mentioned today that we could talk to the DOT and see if they have an interest in getting a sewer line to their garage facility right behind the park and ride.
Yeah.
So there's benefits, but we have a short time frame of 2
Right.
weeks to get this done by July 26th, I
But
believe.
if we apply for it, we don't have to take it, do we?
At this point, I don't think, we don't have to,
I-
Doug, we
right,
don't
we've-
have to take it, it's
yeah.
authorizing the
sign-
I think
application.
we've turned down.
There would be a
grants,
separate
yeah.
resolution to
To
accept,
accept,
formally
Okay.
accept the grant.
Because this could be a $600,000 project, and we'd get $250,000.
It could,
would
Doug,
cost
it
us-
could even be more than that.
Huh?
It could be even more
So
than
why
that.
would we do it?
Well, it all depends, there's a lot of unknowns right now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Unless you
So-
want to, unless you
Right.
feel the obligation to put a bathroom on 36 miles of,
Well, the goal really is to also have the economic benefit of restoring the Eastview Pump Station. And so we're trying to,
that's a whole nother project.
well,
which-
it's a whole
with
other
a leasing
project, but
involved.
in this building,
Okay, we don't have to accept the money if we
correct,
apply for the
Right.
grant.
correct.
Okay.
Did we,
Yes,
we have a motion, second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, 15, right? Authorization of a contract related to the New York State DEC Estuary Grant for the Tarrytown Losi Park Shoreline Stabilization Kayak Line Launch and Education Project. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute an agreement with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for a grant that was awarded to the village in the amount of $271,000 for the Tarrytown Losi Park Shoreline Stabilization Kayak Launch and Education Project, and be it further resolved that the funding for the grant award is provided by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Hudson River Estuary Program. Motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have an Old Croton Aqueduct Contract Award. Good old Croton
Third time's the
Aqueduct.
charm.
Whereas the Village of Tarrytown was awarded a grant in the amount of $300,000 from the new New York Bridge Community Benefit Fund for the purpose of the Old Croton Aqueduct Improvement Project. The work consists of landscaping, pavement, concrete sidewalk walls, removal of asphalt paving that was installed over trails, striping, grading to improve public access to the OCA walking trails within the Village of Tarrytown. And whereas this grant is not a matching grant, it is 100% funded by New York State. And whereas based on the original bid deadline of September 12th, 2018, by which the village received no bids, the original contract deadline was extended until September 26th, 2018, when the village received one bid, and October 15th, 2018, the village rejected the bid as it was substantially higher than the grant and project budget, and the village staff was directed to rebid the project. And whereas upon rebidding the project this summer, the village received one sealed bid on July 12th, 2019, for the Old Croton Aqueduct Improvement Project as listed below. Company name: Palladino Concrete Creations Corp., a WBE. Base bid amount, $289,600, whereas the bid is being reviewed by the village staff, and it is their recommendation that the contract be awarded to the sole responsible bidder, Palladino Concrete Creations Corporation, a WBE, per their base bid amount of $289,600, not to exceed the grant amount of $300,000, and now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby award the bid for the Old Croton Aqueduct Improvement Project to Palladino Concrete Creations Corporation, a WBE, of Mount Vernon, New York, per their base bid amount of $289,600, subject to final approval by the village engineer and the village administrator, and be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute an agreement with Palladino Concrete Creations Corporation for this project, subject to final approval by the village engineer and the village administrator.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is
sir.
there a WPE requirement here?
Yes,
Okay.
there's a requirement for either 10 or, I believe it's 10% WBE and 10% minority business enterprise, so that's from the state.
And this is 100%?
They're 100%, we would actually be looking to work with them to get, to meet the MBE requirement as well.
Motion?
WBE means,
Women
Business
Women
Yeah, just
Business
say it, you gotta
Enterprise,
make it
and
clear. okay.
MBE is minority business enterprise.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Vehicle and traffic amendment, handicap parking space. Be resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize the creation of a parking space reserved for handicapped persons on West Elizabeth Street in front of number 23. All new materials set forth in bold letters, section 29192, schedule 27, handicap parking spaces in accordance with the provisions of section 29162. The following describes streets, driveways, parking lots, and auto parks, or parts of streets, driveways, parking lots, and auto parks are hereby, what is an auto park? Does anybody know what an auto park is? No. Hey, okay, are hereby designated as handicap parking spaces and are designated for use by persons with handicap parking permits. Name of street, Elizabeth Street. The side is the north side. The location is from a point 42 feet west of John Street for a distance of 22 feet in a westerly direction. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Another handicap parking space. Be resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize the creation of a parking space reserved for handicapped persons on Tappan Landing Road. All new materials set forth in bold letters. Section 29192, Schedule 27, handicap parking spaces in accordance with the provision of 29162. The following describe streets, driveways, parking lots, and auto parks, or parts of streets, driveways, parking lots, and auto parks are hereby designated as handicap parking spaces and are designated for use by persons with handicap parking permits. Name of street, Tappan Landing Road, on the south side from a point 67 feet west of South Broadway for a distance of 22 feet in a westerly direction. All in favor? Next, a zoning text amendment request. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby refer the request from the Tarrytown Self-Storage 2 at Depot Plaza to the Planning Board for the secret review, report, and recommendation for the purpose of a zoning text amendment relative to 37 South Depot Plaza, Lot 38. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown hereby consents to the Planning Board serving as lead agency for a coordinated secret review of this action. Have a motion? Second. All in favor?
Through an auto park is a parking space for a car that automatically parks itself.
Really?
I just looked it up.
I think that's a new definition
Yeah,
since
it
back
is,
when
yeah.
they wrote this law. I'm
Well,
sure there were no
that's what it
automatic
says.
parking cars.
I was wondering if it might have to do with Penske or something like that.
Yeah,
Must be a
maybe,
motor
or
transport place.
car dealers? I don't know.
Maybe.
Auto,
Auto park definition, a parcel of land that has been zoned via local regulation for commercial use.
auto park.
Yeah, for commercial use, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, parking lot, yeah, right. An emergency vehicle designated parking space on Tappan Landing Road. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize designation of a parking space for emergency vehicles only on the south curb of Tappan Landing Road. This space would be utilized for the emergency vehicle of Second Assistant Fire Chief Kelly Murphy, TFD car number 2463. The parking space would remain in effect until Fire Chief Murphy's term expires. The parking space is as follows. The name of the street, Tappan Landing Road, south side from point 45 feet west of South Broadway for a distance of 22 feet in a westerly direction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it'd be right next to the, right after.
Right next to the handicap
spot.
Yep.
Change order, SCADA system for the Delaware water tap connection. Whereas the Village of Tarrytown is cooperating with the villages of Briarcliff Manor and Sleepy Hollow on the water tap connection to the Delaware water system. This is necessary because the Catskill water system will be shut down on October 15th, 2019. And whereas during the field installation, it came to the attention of the three villages that the telecommunication data line had to be installed along with new pipe for the purposes of computer communication supervisory control and data acquisition, which is what SCADA means. And whereas this was originally provided for within the budget for the project as a contingency allowance based on an estimate of $150,000. Based on the negotiations between the engineer and the contractor, the total price for this work will be a total estimated amount of $168,000, of which the village will be responsible for approximately 1/3, based on the formula established among the three villages. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve a change order for the SCADA system for the Delaware water tap connection project in the total amount of $168,000, of which the Village of Tarrytown will be responsible for approximately 1/3 based on the formula established among the three villages.
On the question,
Yes.
why is the word approximately in there? If it's a third, it's a third.
One of the things you're always worried about is when you excavate ground, if there's additional things that have to be added or other equipment, it could change the price.
No, then that would be another change order.
Well, it depends.
No, it doesn't depend. This change, we're doing a change order based on the description that we got here
Yes.
for 168. I'm just wondering why they put the approximate, because it would be you'd be paying a third. And if there's something else that's unforeseen and discovered, then that would be another change.
But Tom, also keep in mind, this is based on unit prices. So once this is a written estimate from the contractor. Once they actually do it, it could be more or less,
Yeah,
it's
but you-
approximately.
Yeah, but unit price mean one thing, this is a lump sum that you're providing, you're not providing unit prices. This is a lump sum, $168,000.
If the price went up, though, it would, we'd still be responsible for a third.
Yeah.
If the price went, if the
So-
price went
so
up,
I guess that'd be more
It's
the
the,
question.
it's
Is
the
it a third or is
approximately
it-
1/3. Like
What's the
that.
Well,
variation?
the amount
It
is
should be
approximately
approximate.
168,000, and our portion is approximately 1/3. But it's based on the formula established between the three villages.
you're missing my point.
No, I understand your
Yeah.
point.
Okay, so what's my point?
Your point is that it should just be $168,000.
And we're paying a third of $168,000. And if there's any other unforeseen condition, then that would be an additional change order.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that, does the board want us to come back if there's a material change order, or if it's on a minor change order?
Well, let me, excuse, 1 second, Rich. The actual resolution says the project in the total amount of 168,000, the approximately refers to the 1/3, which it isn't exactly 1/3, but there's a formula that's established in the agreement that
Correct.
makes, that, there is a number, but you just didn't put the, whatever that
Oh, okay.
whatever that is in the formula.
Well, I don't have there's two
Yeah.
concerns. One, again, is to explain what Tom was looking for, is that this is it's an estimated number based on a written estimate provided by the contractor.
Wait a minute, I'm confused now.
That's why it says
When you submit a
estimated.
change order,
If you
it
read
says
it, it
change
says
order.
total estimated amount of $168,000. They've given us a written estimate.
Although, Rich, just the resolution we're passing, the be it resolved, sets the total amount at 168,000. The whereas has an estimate
It
of
should say the
168,
total estimated amount of $168,000.
because it does,
And the Village of Tarrytown will be responsible for approximately 1/3 based on the formula
Right.
established between the three.
that approximately makes sense, because
Yes.
there's a formula that exists in another agreement that has a precise number attached to it.
So there should be a total estimated amount in the
I'm
resolve
still
clause.
confused by this estimate. Are we voting on 168, or is there another number that's
You're
floating?
voting on a written proposal of 168.
And that's the change order,
That's the
168.
change order.
Okay.
So if there's additional money, if it's $1,500, I would expect that the board wouldn't consider that material. If it's $10,000 or more, you would ask for us to come back and seek additional approval.
Yeah, he would ask for another change order, and we would vote on $10,000 or $15,000, whatever it is.
But again, what I'm saying is the difference is materiality, the extent of the change order. You're not gonna care about $50 or $100 or $1,500.
Yeah, but we're voting on a specific number, and that change order is based on a specific number. That's what I'm saying. So are you telling me there's another formula that says that the Village of Tarrytown may pay a little bit more than the other?
Yes.
No, not than the other,
Well, that's
no.
both. It's both.
No, but
I'm
wait.
confused.
There's a formula established for how much, the proportion we pay,
Yes.
which is approximately 1/3, but
But there
that
are-
exact number is something else.
And-
The
but
amount
there
of
are-
money, you're saying that the amount of money for the contract may be, yeah, but we keep on going in circles.
We're not going in
Is that-
circles.
is
He's the
that-
one that's presenting it.
I know, but there's two different numbers here. One is the 1/3.
No, there's more than two different numbers here.
What's the third or fourth number?
So the first thing, to Tom's question, it is total estimated amount. What I'm saying
Right.
is that in relation to the work, until they put a shovel in the ground and see what's there, they might have to remove rock. There might be
Right.
additional things involved with, this is a conduit that's going in the same excavated trench where the water pipe is going.
So
for
the
this-
change,
for this tap.
so the change
The
order.
change order
for-
is only for the SCADA communication.
Correct, and that's 168.
It's an estimated amount of 168 based on the project. So again, until they try to connect everything, what I'm saying is estimated, if there's a 1% change, I don't think the board's gonna care. If there's a material change, if
We
you wanna
always
say.
care about money.
So that's what I'm trying to say, is to what level does the board want us to come back to
I
you
agree.
all
So
for a
it
change
seems,
order?
so the question, right, that's the question. The question is, what is that threshold? Is it 1%, is it 5%, is it 10%?
But you don't know that.
Where we-
You
But
don't
Tom-
know that until the contractor comes back and tell you.
I understand that, but we could
But
say,
Tom, I would
but
expect
we
it's not
can
a
certainly
penny.
say, what percentage over 168 do we want
That's
to
exactly
come back
right.
with?
But you don't
with
have that
another
in,
change
you
order?
don't have that in this document.
But then perhaps we need to have that.
Well,
I think
that
that's
must-
the question perhaps, is that what is
But
Is it
keeping
gonna
in
be
mind
for
that we have
anything
to,
over 168 that we want?
keeping in mind, we have to have this done, connected, and in service by October 15th.
I don't have a
And-
problem with that. What
okay.
I'm saying is that what we're voting on is that we're voting on a change order for $168,000.
Yes.
If there's any additional work, then the contractor will come back with another change order and we'll vote on that.
But
So
if
we
there's
know the
savings,
number.
I don't need to come back to you all.
What?
If there are savings because of the quantities, I don't need to come back to you all.
Then you have a credit change order. The
Correct.
contract gives me credit back. It's called a credit change order.
I understand that.
So I'm confused.
So Tom, that's why I'm saying a total estimated amount in terms of the dollar amount, because that's what they put on paper. It's before they've actually done the work. It's gonna be based on quantities, so once it's done, the engineers will confirm quantities and they'll give us a number for an exact amount.
So Richard, listen what I'm saying, okay? We're voting on, based on this estimate of $168,000.
Correct.
Because they don't know what the real number is. That's what you're saying.
They don't have a precise number.
Okay. So somewhere down the line, it's gonna be more or less. If it's less, they give us back a credit change order. If it's more, they'll come back and ask for additional money, which will be another change order.
That's what I
and
would
we'll know
expect
the
as part of
name.
the total resolution of the contract.
So we're voting,
So, and then to answer Drew's question, you are correct to an extent. There are more than one agreement between the village of Tarrytown and the other two villages. That's why I had to say what I said.
Yeah.
There are some estimates, there are some contracts between us where it's a third, a third, a third. There's other contracts where it's based on, I think, our population. And there's a third contract where it's based on our annual water draw. So I don't know, that's why I said approximately a third, because I don't know which
Which
formula
right,
applies.
right. But there's a formula,
There is a
there is a
formula in
precise,
each,
there is something precise that can be derived
there's a
that
formula
would
in the
apply to
three
this.
different
Yeah.
agreements.
Then it seems presumptuous that, presumptive in this is, if we vote on this resolution, that presumptive in that is that if it is any different than our portion of that 168, that it should come back to the board, from my perspective.
And we will do that.
Even if it's less.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Well, except if the change occurs on October 1 and you have to have the water line open, I mean, what
Yeah.
you're,
We're over a barrel.
right, that's the thing, is it isn't your regular
Yeah.
old project.
It's
You're
not-
literally turning the water off
I
on
understand.
October 15th.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to have a degree of flexibility.
so
in
for
this.
clarification, we're voting on 168, and there may be a
We'll
variation.
bring any changes back to the board.
No, and there's a variation on, we may pay a little bit more, or the other groups may
those.
pay a little bit more.
Correct.
That's the thing that you were
Right.
talking about.
That isn't-
I understand.
Do we have a motion? I can't remember.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Schedule a public hearing for the rezoning of Lot 37, South Depot Plaza. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is hereby schedule a public hearing for the regular meeting of August 19th, 2019, at 8 PM in the Municipal Building, 1 Depot Plaza, Tarrytown, New York, to hear and consider a proposed amendment to the zoning code of the Village of Tarrytown, Chapter 305, to rezone Lot 37, South Depot Plaza, from Waterfront District to Industrial District in order to accommodate the owner's craft brewery pub proposal. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown determines that this is an unlisted action pursuant to secret as there are no other involved agencies for the proposed rezoning. The Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown hereby declares itself lead agency for the purpose of secret.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the minutes. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is hereby approved the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees held on June 17th, 2019, as submitted by the village clerk. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
And the vouchers. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve abstract number 2, which includes the July 1, 2019 and July 15, 2019 audited vouchers in a total amount of $1,400,630.28 as presented by the village treasurer, to be paid in the following amounts, which I'm not going to read. Total of $1,400,630.28. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Paul?
Yes.
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 Yes, okay. There's no members of the public here, so I will take a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Executive session on personnel matters, records of employment, and discussion of ongoing legal negotiations on the sale of land.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we won't be returning, and we'll see everybody next month.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.